So hello everyone, looking at the camera. Welcome to the next in our new series of vlogs, COVideo series. I'm Robin, I'm one of the Agile Avengers, and I'm coming to you today alongside Edina, who's another Agile Avenger, amazingly. And we're generally going to talk about, quite topically, it's Mental Health Week. And certainly that's particularly, it's always relevant, but it's particularly relevant at the moment for many, many people in situations they've not been in before, probably. Certainly, both Edina and I are, in quotes, in between jobs. So that presents challenges, probably in normal circumstances, but certainly now. And we just want to have a chat about that, and within the context of mental health. There might even be some practical hints and tips of what we've done to manage things. We were chatting the other day when we were preparing for this, and you made an interesting point, Edina, about how we met and our background in terms of contracting and permie. Do you want to sort of touch on that?
Yeah, so hi everyone. We did start working together in a big corporation first, and I was there as a full-time employee and you were a contractor, and that is a huge difference. But I think our team was quite coherent, so it didn't really seem that was a problem. But for me, as a person who just moved to the UK, it was really important that I had this everything is there for me, so I didn't have to worry about anything that I have to sort out by myself. So it was something stable. But I don't know, it might have been something different for you as a contractor. You don't really feel that kind of need for something stable, right?
In some respect, yes. Even in the contracting world, you get short-term contracts and you get long-term contracts. Now, back when I first started, it was no problem to get a 1-week contract and then move on to another 1-week contract, 2 weeks or whatever, sometimes a bit longer. And that was my preference at that time. In recent years, my preference has been for longer term. Best of both worlds, I suppose. It's a little bit of stability, a little bit of longevity, so you've got an income for the next, 6-12 months. I think where once the permanent role was certainly seen, or probably was, a lot more stable and a lot more secure, I don't think that's the case these days. So perhaps from the point of view of wanting the sort of everything secure and as you were saying, that's probably not so much a concern for me, even though I would my preference would be for a longer term. But always, there's a saying in the contract community: your contract's only over as long as your notice period. And I think you get used to that. So I think quite possibly that's prepared me in some sense for what's been happening this last couple of months with lockdown, etc. However, having said that, I was working when we had back in 2000 when the dot-com bubble burst, and that was quite tough. Like the bottom dropped out of the market back then, and up until then, literally, you could walk out of one contract into another one the next day, and then that was no longer the case. But this is far, far more challenging than that. And of course, we're in the midst of lockdown, so it's not just a case of doing the job hunting, but dealing with the fact that things are the way they are, and there's a lot of unknowns. But though you were permanent at Vodafone in London, you've been a sort of a contractor previous to that, haven't you?
Yeah, as I mentioned it the last time we talked about it. Yeah, I did. I had self-employment in Hungary before that for over a year, I think. And I had a long project for a year with a startup, which was almost like being a full-time employee for them. So I didn't really feel anything different. But after that, I had a few months period when I literally just moved from project to project. And for me, that was so uncertain. I never knew what's going to come next. And I just didn't feel comfortable. And now this lockdown situation for me, it's almost exactly like that. And it just reminds me of that time. And I just don't feel comfortable in this situation. And I'm sure that so many people are in the same situation, especially if they never ever experienced it before, because they always been in a full-time position. So it's going to be something that people have to get used to, especially because working so like positions and jobs, they're going to change it. They probably don't even need people for full-time positions that much. Maybe, I don't know, but it might be one of the effects of the COVID virus pandemic.
I think what's interesting for me, and I've come across in a few other podcasts, is that what we're seeing, I mean, something like this comes up with the virus, that these sorts of situations really, they emphasize things that are already present. So things that are already in a certain way are magnified or amplified. And, you know, we've had probably around 250 years or so since the Industrial Revolution started. And we have been living in an industrialized world largely since then, which is where that notion of, you know, job for life and you work in one place, etc., comes from. I do think that what we're seeing now is a amplified and perhaps expedited the shift from a industrial world, from the industrial age to the information age. And the information age is definitely is part of that, is what you've touched on there. But it isn't necessarily about, you know, you have a job for life and you go to an office and you sit in the office 9 to 5 and you do that day in, day out. It's much more about flexible working, flexible workforce, and that you can work from anywhere. I mean, you only have to look at Twitter, who've announced that, you know, as far as they're concerned, their workforce can continue to work from home forever if they want to. Now, you know, that's a massive shift very suddenly. And again, I mean, I recently, my last contract before this all kicked off was 90% remote, which was an adjustment to begin with, and I got used to it. That's certainly a massive adjustment for many people, even if you have got your job is continuing. It's and this certainly touches on massively emotional well-being and mental health, because certainly one of the things, and this is about finding a balance eventually, but one of the very important things about being in an office, for example, it could be an office, it could be a shop, it could be whatever, is that interaction with other people. And that's, I think for a lot of people, that's probably very essential to them.
It is.
Because you can end up, it can be very easy working from home. Even if you got video calls, it's not the same thing, and certainly a sense of isolation can creep in. How's that experience been for you?
Well, I was preparing for doing video chats with you guys because obviously I moved back to Hungary, but I see my dad, he's struggling so much daily with calls, and I keep telling him that, like, do the video calls. I know it's not the same, but it makes a difference just to see people's reaction. We all know that most of the communication comes through the non-verbal part of, like, the gestures and the mimics, and he feels uncomfortable in that situation. I'm sure there are so many other people in the same position, and he's an older generation. He never really had to work in a way like that. He's been working from home previously as well, but it's just such a huge change for them. They just don't really know how to get their head around it. I feel for me, I would say it's fine, but I do miss human interaction. I do miss sitting in the office even. So I think after this, we need to find a balance between, I think, how many working from home days do we want per week? Because working full time from home is probably not good mentally. I mean, it's definitely not good, but we need to give people the chance to work from home almost as much as they want to. Because everyone is different. Everyone has different needs. My dad would go to the office almost every day. Well, probably I would just go there 2 or 3 times a week. But it should be their choice.
Yeah,
I'd say.
yeah, and I think what this has shown to a lot of companies who perhaps were resistant and were stuck in the model of bums on seats for 8 hours, 8 or 9 hours, because that's how you get work done, and that's how you, to be honest, probably that's how you micromanage your workforce. But if anything, what this has demonstrated vividly and rapidly is that that's not the case, and that's not necessary. But it is also equally, it's highlighted just how important mental health is. I mean, generally, not just in work. When people talk about the work-life balance, I'm not sure that's personally. I'm not sure how accurate that is, because I think work is life. It's part of your life. It's a very dominant part of your life for many people, or it has been. So So in terms of being in the situation that we're collectively in, and coping with this, what ways have you found to get to grips with this situation, to find some measure of that sort of in an uncertain time, where being someone who likes to have things a bit more predictable, let's say, if that's an accurate word, but what have you been doing to deal with this? How have you been coping?
I know that for loads of people, meditation and all the spiritual part of life helps, but to me it was always planning, putting together schedules, so I know what's coming up. And even in this unpredictable, uncertain situation, just knowing what I want to achieve by the end of the day, to have the to-do list, literally, it just helps me so much. And by the end of the day, you sit down maybe with a glass of wine, you look through your list, and you're happy that everything is checked. So I'm not gonna lie, after coming back to Hungary, I was in my room for 2 weeks, self-isolated, because I'm sharing the household with my parents. So I was actually quite productive during those 2 weeks, but after that, everything just fell out of my hands. I had no idea how to get a grip of everything. And then I needed some time to think about my situation. I did a little bit of meditation. I don't know if it's called meditation what I did, but I would say for me, it felt like I was meditating a bit. And so gathered my thoughts and realized that I need to get back to the old Edina and sit down and do the things that I know will help me, which is the to-do list. And writing it down was the first step. I think the second one was reprioritizing the list, because even though I just put everything, so applying to jobs was on the list, but it was always pushed down to the bottom because I didn't feel comfortable doing that. And I did it for probably 2 weeks when I was still like pushing it back. And even just like cleaning my room was more important. And then I realized that it's not going to work if I do it like that. And I just pulled everything in a different order. And one day I just said, okay, I'm not going to get any lunch if I don't do the applications, at least a few, just a handful. And yeah, I actually did it. And I'm not saying that I did the best. I only applied, I think, 3 at that time. but at least that was a start. And what I realized that, and it's really important, I think, celebrating things. And I did forget how to celebrate things since I'm here. And it's probably also because I'm in this, well, I'm in my childhood dream. It was inspiring for a child, but not inspiring anymore to me. So I realized that this situation is not going to change in the next few months, or maybe end of summer. Till the end of summer, I'm going to stay in this room. I had to accept this situation, but then see what I can do to make my, I don't know, my way of thinking better. So yeah, I think what really helped me is planning and pushing myself to do things, and we'll see what's going to come out of it. So I've done some applications, which is good, but well, that's the point where I'm at the moment. Mm. How about you? I know that you have such a different mindset to like you look at things from a different point of view.
Yes and no. I mean, what you're saying is definitely some of the stuff that I've been doing.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly what comes to me is that in Agile, the idea of MVP, minimum viable product, and iterations, which, and it's interesting for me to frame some of this in that context. So of course, you know, that within that, if you're looking at a project, you're kicking off a project, you're not looking each day at how do I deliver the whole project in one go today, because it's overwhelming and you end up not knowing what to do. It's looking at each day and saying, okay, what's the minimum thing that if I deliver that today, that gets me a step closer to whatever it is that I'm moving towards. And I have a daily to-do list, and I prioritize that. And I don't always do this, but what I try to do, if there's some sort of longer term things that I'm aiming for, and I'll often ask myself is, what could I do today that moves me closer to that? Even if it's a really small thing, it doesn't have to be a big thing. What would be one thing I can do today, even if it's just sending an email, or even, really honestly, if it's sitting down for 10 minutes or half an hour and just thinking about it, sort of just being in that space. And that, without fail, when I do that, and I acknowledge that to myself, I get to the end of the day and I feel good about that. And I also, one of the other things that I strive for, and I don't manage it every day, but I just have a morning routine. So getting up probably around 7, ideally more like 6 or 6:30. But don't beat myself up if I don't manage that. It's like, okay, didn't do that today. I'll own it, and it's okay. And I'll do a few things. Like I'll do some meditation. I do some yoga, do exercising. I'll do some journaling. I've been watched probably a lot of you out there, you've heard of Tim Ferriss. I was watching a video about how he's talking about how he journals, and I took one of his ideas, which was the 5-minute journal. Probably we can put a link to some more information about that with this video. But it's a very short thing. It's about one of the things I find really valuable out of that is writing down 3 things that I'm grateful for. So it's like a daily gratitude list of 3 things in the morning. What 3 things am I grateful for? And it can be all sorts of different things, from very simple things through to much more sort of grandiose things. So for example, yesterday morning, one of the things I wrote down was just sunshine. I was just sitting on the sofa and the sun was shining through the window, and I thought, yeah, that's just so valuable. I'm so grateful for that. Little things like that, done regularly and consistently, really make a difference. And those things make a difference anyway. But I've found now is, like with a lot of things, there's this stuff that I kind of knew in theory before, but now is just like, it's not the universe is saying, well, now live it. You are literally in that uncertainty, which actually is present all the time. We like to think that the world and the universe is predictable, and we do everything we can to make it predictable, but in fact it's not, and ultimately we have no control. We don't, ultimately. So getting present to that with these little activities, and the celebrating as well, yeah, that's really important. I think it's important for each person to, you know, for somebody, it may be one day that the thing that they achieve is getting out of bed, because every instinct is telling them they just want to stay in bed and curl up and pull the duvet over their head because they don't want to face the day, and they just get up. That's important as well. That's an achievement.
Yeah.
And I think it is sometimes just doing something anyway, even though you don't feel like it. That can be, and what is really valuable is just reaching out to somebody. So if you are feeling a bit isolated, just make a phone call or whatever, and not to be worried about what are you going to talk about. Yeah. If you get caught up in, oh, what am I going to talk about? That just prevents the action. So quite a lot of things. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go on.
No, I just wanted to say that to me, it always felt like people are shouting that now under lockdown, you're supposed to learn a new language, you're supposed to learn how to cook. You know, it's the amount of sourdough bread pictures on Instagram just annoyed me so much, because everyone was baking. And I feel that at the beginning, I really tried to push myself to do things. I even got an ukulele, sorry. And I just realized that for some people, and probably I'm among those, this time is not about learning something new, achieving something phenomenal, but just like just recover from what happened previously. And certainly if you, especially, like, I'm talking about myself, but if you're a person who has some almost like emotional baggage that you've been carrying on, now this is the time to sit down a bit. And that's how I want to link it to what you were saying, that sometimes just getting out of bed or just sitting outside for a bit or calling someone, that's an achievement. That's something that you can put on your list of things that you want to celebrate. So it doesn't have to be something, yeah, I wrote a new song or created something huge. Yeah. So I think
absolutely. And I think maintaining some kind of and a journal doesn't have to be long journal entries, not that sort of dear diary. It can be, if that comes to you. But that's why I took this sort of 5-minute journal, because it was so simple, and I wanted to get back into journaling. And this is such a simple thing. There's a few things. You start the day off with, what am I grateful for, and what I want to achieve today or do today, and what would make today great. And at the end of the day, you know, it's what are 3 amazing things that happened today. And it just gets you, or it gets me, it's gotten me sort of mindful of those things during the day. So I start, you know, rather than just get through the day without thinking about that, and at the end of the day, I think, what did I do today? As I'm mindful about it, as I'm getting through the day, and I might be, like, for example, the other day I was helping my dad out in his garden, and I thought, yeah, this is a pretty cool thing. I like this. This is a good thing that is happening today. So getting into that gradually, into that mindset of, I suppose, being conscious of oneself, but sort of mindful of where you might otherwise not think that you're doing much. Beginning to acknowledge. It's about self-acknowledgement of, yeah, I'm doing that and I'm doing that, however simple it is. And certainly not to compare to, as you were saying, this sort of idea that, oh, yeah, you must learn something. Of course, it's an opportunity, for sure. But in terms of MVP, for somebody, an MVP might be learning a new language. For another person, the MVP might be learning how to be with themselves without any, being able to go out and socialize. Yeah. That may be the thing that they're learning. It can be a being learning. Often a lot of people, I think, are focused on what am I doing? What do I need to do today? What am I going to do today? I'm going to learn this. I'm going to learn that. I'm going to do this. Equally valuable, in fact, I think more valuable, is having not a list, but looking at, well, what do I want to be today? How am I being? And that's probably, even for me, that's even more fundamental. Yeah, I can learn a language. Does that create some opportunities? Possibly. Does that change? Does that help me in my growth as a person? To some degree, but is it really affecting anything that's inside me? Not really. But it has a value. But I would say that equally, if not more valuable, is looking at what work are we doing on ourselves during this time. And as we've said, that can be small things, it can be big things.
Yeah.
And they're all good. It's all good. And being kind to ourselves. I know you mentioned that you can see the difference in yourself when you have a walk up the hill in the morning.
Yes. Yes. Like, I did it last week as well, and I watched back the video that we took after it, and I could just tell that I was a different person. Well, I was different. I was my old self. So not the lockdown Edina. I was the old, everything is good Edina. And I knew that we're going to do this vlog today. So even though the weather today is not the sunniest, I just decided to go up again, spend roughly like 40 minutes up on the hill on my own, drinking my coffee and eating my breakfast. And it was amazing. I was just watching the town. I can see my hometown from there, and it's just really nice. And it just makes a difference. And this is like, I don't know if that counts as meditation, but for me, it's because I don't usually do that. That's just something extra, and it makes my day, I guess, special in a way. So yeah, it does help. It does help, even though I'm really the practical, let's just get on with it type of person.
Yeah,
pushes you out of that zone.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there is nature, definitely. I mean, for me, is also very important. Always has been, and there is a contemplative aspect of being there outdoors, and it can certainly be a meditation. I mean, in terms of like, sitting and contemplating the vista of your hometown. That's definitely an aspect of a meditation, of a contemplation. It's in a sense, it's something that it's not a busyness of thought that's trying to work out what to do. It's a letting go. It's just being in the moment, really. A thought that's come to me also is, of course, that it's important to be mindful of people who we're living with, people who we're dealing with, that people are struggling. Some people are doing well. Some people are not doing well, but they'll put on a brave face on the video call on the phone. And just to be mindful of that, I think this, I think, in terms of mental health, emotional well-being, is kindness. Just having that bit of kindness and compassion for ourselves, first of all, and for those around us, and certainly for ourselves first of all, because if I'm not kind and compassionate to myself, I certainly can't expect to be able to be that to others. And being, allowing things to slip, saying, yeah, no, I didn't do anything today. Actually, I didn't, but I couldn't identify. Okay, that's all right. We're not we're the Agile Avengers, but we're not, each of us, we're not every day going to save the world. We're not going to do that. And we will slip up, and we will lose our patience, and we will curl up under the duvet sometimes. And that's okay as well. So it's a combination of things. It's the stuff that we've talked about. It's those small little practical things day to day that can help us in these situations. but also being okay with it when that doesn't happen one day or on one morning or whatever. And I think in the same way, I would look at what I would call a good manager is somebody who doesn't lose their rag when something isn't quite delivered when it was supposed to be. Rather, they'll sort of say, "Okay, team, let's have a conversation about this. Let's look at what happened." This is the importance of having things like reviews and retros, where it's not about right or wrong, or you're very naughty because you didn't do what you said you were going to do. Let's just look at that. Say, okay, that didn't happen. Okay, now let's look at why that didn't happen. Yeah. So I'm looking at the time, and I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Have you got any final thoughts, Edina?
Just to add that, well, I'm sharing my household with my parents, as I said, and I think the most important thing is the support that we give each other. Like, obviously, I get so much support from my parents because they're fantastic parents, so they do it. But I feel, not to tap my shoulder, but I did contribute and give my share to them, and it's not only good for them, but it makes me feel like I'm a better person to be like in the moment and help them out wherever I can. And yeah, basically this is what you were saying, being kind to others. And if someone comes to you with, just as we talked about it, just talk, just have a chat with them and sit down and talk to them. I think that's one of the most important takeaways of this chat that we just had.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for watching or listening or whatever it is you're doing. If you've got any comments, anything here that strikes a chord, leave a comment. Don't leave a comment. Doesn't matter. Yeah, below, above. Usually below, isn't it? But hopefully, at the very least, with this sharing, if you're watching this and you're thinking you're sat there on your own struggling with this, you're not. We are all in the same boat, and a lot of us are experiencing the same challenges. So yeah, thanks everyone, and see you soon.
See you. Cut.
Okay, so you're recording already, yes?
Yeah, well, it says recording, so.
Okay. Oh yeah, it says recording on my end as well.
Good.
Which probably means it's recording.
Sometimes I didn't know if that's my cue to jump in or you're still in the. Yeah, but it's fine. I mean,
it's coming.
And not to look at myself so hard,
yes,
because I don't want to look at myself.
I just need to do, that's the right angle. Keep talking. No, that's the right. Oh yes, that's it.
But I know that I tend to tilt my head like that, and I was still looking at you, but I could see myself doing this like a cat, and like no.
Oh, brilliant. Alrighty. Yeah. Look forward to see what you do with this.
Yeah.
It is already a good video.
Yeah, I'm still recording. Yeah.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.